Even if you're active in a religion nowadays, you have to say that there's some crazy religions out there. And of course, anything that doesn't believe what you believe, then it's got to be crazy, type of things. And you find modern creationists that just will not agree with modern science. They actually feel like they have to believe that Noah's flood was totally accurate and that there is a crystal dome above the earth. And this crystal dome holds back the waters of space because it says so in the Bible. That there's waters above the firmament, which is a crystal dome with all bubbles in it, and that's what the stars are. And that the stars are going to fall to Earth. That they fell once before, a third of the stars, and that's going to happen, And of course, we know now stars, there's thousands of times bigger, and they're not bubbles up in a trapped crystal dome. So if a star falls, and then people try to say, well, that's symbolic or something. No, that's a meteor shower. That's what they're describing. We still to this day call them falling stars, but we know what they are now. Just like we know where the sun goes at night and where rain comes from. And it's not really from slits being in the atmosphere and God dropping water out from the firmament above, but that's what the Bible actually teaches. It's odd what the different versions of this teach too in various forms, and I'll show you a wicked little video here in a second that actually explains one of the Mormon beliefs, believe it or not. And they try to explain why there's actual once people found out that there was Africans and Eskimos and Chinese that weren't explained in the Bibles, and all the people that aren't explained in the Bible, and American Indians, of course, and that's where the Book of Mormon here comes in, that they had to try to explain how God created these people, and they said, oh well, they were primitives that didn't follow God, and that they had followed God, and just following God made them get smarter, or something, and so it leaves you this weird, odd, stupid belief. And you come to find out that this John Smith actually was a shyster that was being chased at the time for, snake oil salesman, basically, back in the time, and lying to people and moving from town to town, trying to rack up money. And he ran into an Egyptian salesman and got a couple of mummies and some artifacts and some scrolls, and he took that scroll and deciphered it, and it was a little bit incomplete, missing a couple of chunks, but he deciphered it. Said he deciphered that the gods had helped him to decipher it, and it was ancient Egyptian, and that what it had said, well, it really was a bunch of shit, but and it led to the teachings, and of course then he says that he found these golden plates that were left to him by Moroni, and all these things, and it'll show up in this video here a little bit, but I want to give you a little background to it. But crazy beliefs that we have, and you think after the Bible people wouldn't come up with crazy stuff, but the Protestants and all that Reformations had little forms of this, and there's still little forms of this that echo today. And one of them is the new black Israelite, Hebrew Israelites here in America. So now what we have is reverse black racism. It's incredible. I don't know if the people in UK or anything know about it, but so now what it is the black people in America that were the African slaves that they brought over, the primitive people. Now they've said that the Bible was actually theirs the whole time, even though there's no African writing until Islam shows up, and that they were the original Hebrew Israelites that were always talked about in the Bible, and that it was their book in the first place, and they just forgot. And I guess the difference between the Mormons here is the Mormons say that we're supposed to bring the Indians up and the black people up, and everybody's supposed to ascend, and you're just supposed to. It's their way of calling out a missionary to where they can go out into these areas and be missionaries to them and teach them God and bring them up, and then we're all great in God's word. Yay! All the rainbow colors of the world and stuff. They have the whole thing about that. So they're not racist necessarily about it. It's their way of explaining primitive cultures that weren't explained in the Bible, because the Bible only has Egyptians and Persians and white people and stuff. So Um, this is an odd video. It's kind of weird. It's made in like a 1980s, almost like the ones you see on SNL and stuff, and it's kind of funny and humoristic, but you take the new black Hebrew Israelite in America idea and just flip the colors of these two people, and it's kind of what they believe, and they're believing it was all built around them. I guess the two differences here is that the Mormons are supposed to bring everybody up, and here we go world, and the Hebrew Israelite African American version is hate whitey, oh man, hate whitey, and they're supposed to rise up against him. And I find that odd, and so I looked into it a little bit. They say there's 400 years of oppression in the Bible that's supposed to go through in slavery and stuff, and enslaving to another people, and indeed that's already gone down. The Egyptians and stuff, and blah 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 that they had before, but then there's supposed to be an enslavement that happens after that, and that they talk about, and that indeed has already happened also. But that they say it's yet to happen, that it was not then and written in there, but it's a prophecy of 2,000 years in the future, that even though it already happened in the Bible, so it says it's going to happen and it happens, that wasn't it. That it's actually much, much later, 2,000 years now, and that's all about it. And also the fact that they say whenever they're in sorrow that they're in darkness, and they go see they're black. They talked about darkness and slavery, and now it's got to be us. Like there wasn't white slavery all the way through the Dark Ages, and even some of the first Americans that came here were indentured servants and slaves of other people that were white. Somebody said 16% of the slaves that came to North America were actually white, and at first all of them were white until they got the black slave trade going on. And so it's, and I don't have to go on that too much and everything off of it, but it's just an odd thing that they have now. And what's weird is that they say they're supposed to go into their oppressors. So you look into the slave trade, and 92% of it was Spaniards taking them to South America for cane fields that ended up going bust, and then 6 to 8%, I believe, some people say 6%, came to North America, and have populated out since then. And so you can look up these figures, people, and stuff, and see, slavery in America and stuff, and it'll show you. They have experts now that have gone through it, all the records. They have all kinds of stuff, that they found out. But they don't want to go against them. They don't hate the Spaniards for the 92%. So, wow. It seems like more of the 6% that they hate. But their oppressors really would have been the people that caught them to give them to the Spaniards. And of course, that would have been North African people. The black North African people that had been taken in by Islam were going down into the primitive areas in southern and central Africa and West Africa, and taking all the primitives from there and capturing them. And so whenever they rise up, or are they mad, they should be mad at those exact people, because that's what it teaches you to be mad about in their little ideogram of how things go. But it's not. Of course, they're not going to go against their own people and stuff. No, it's got to be whitey, which America really was, New England for a long time. So America had the least slavery amount of any country at all, actually, and we're the last ones to do it. And you come to find out that it was only 89 years. So that would be like 1776 to 1865. It's like 89 years. And they're saying it's the 400 years. And I'm like, wow, well, I don't know, that's 89 years. And they go, no, the first black person came in 1619 to 2019. And now we're about to go crazy on a whitey. And you're like, wow, that's the oddest thing in the world. You've been free. I see the problem. You think you're in slavery still somehow. You don't realize that 1865 happened, I guess, or something, because that's over with. But so it doesn't correlate, people, by the way, they found out now in 1588 that there was a few black people brought over that said they were owned by the other people, so they were workers, but that would have been the first people that were slaves. Of course, all the people were slaves until slave ships that came much later over here were actually came over with other white people into New England. And then that went bust, didn't it? And it turned around and bit them on the ass here, because the whole reason America got created was to get away from all that oppression. And so Americans, after only 89 years, the white people there ended up freeing the black people from slavery for the least amount, percentage, and time in history. And it's odd here in America, I know probably from other countries looking at this, that, some 4 or 5 generations later at most, it seems like that they actually hate the people that freed them from it, and freed them from oppression, and then they seem to hold it up against us. It's odd. Let's look at this weird little video here, though, and then just think about reversing it too, maybe perhaps as you go through it. But here.
The basic tenets of Mormonism are in direct conflict with biblical Christianity. The following piece of animation, based directly on actual Mormon publications, highlights these major doctrinal differences.
Mormonism teaches that trillions of planets scattered throughout the cosmos are ruled by countless gods who once were human like us. They say that long ago on one of these planets, to an unidentified god and one of his goddess wives, a spirit child named Elohim was conceived. This spirit child was later born to human parents who gave him a physical body. Through obedience to Mormon teaching and death and resurrection, he proved himself worthy and was elevated to godhood as his father before him. Mormons believe that Elohim is their heavenly father and that he lives with his many goddess wives on a planet near a mysterious star called Kola. Here, the God of Mormonism and his wives, through endless celestial sex, produced billions of spirit children. To decide their destiny, the head of the Mormon gods called a great heavenly council meeting. Both of Elohim's eldest sons were there, Lucifer and his brother Jesus. A plan was presented to build planet Earth, where the spirit children would be sent to take on mortal bodies and learn good from evil. Lucifer stood and made his bid for becoming savior of this new world. Wanting the glory for himself, he planned to force everyone to become gods. Opposing the idea, the Mormon Jesus suggested giving man his freedom of choice, as on other planets. The vote that followed approved the proposal of the Mormon Jesus, who would become savior of the planet Earth. Enraged, Lucifer cunningly convinced 1/3 of the spirits destined for Earth to fight with him in revolt. Thus, Lucifer became the devil and his followers the demons. Sent to this world, they would forever be denied bodies of flesh and bone. Those who remained neutral in the battle were cursed to be born with black skin. This is the Mormon explanation for the Negro race. The spirits that fought most valiantly against Lucifer would be born into Mormon families on planet Earth. These would be the lighter-skinned people, or white and delightsome, as the Book of Mormon describes them. Early Mormon prophets taught that Elohim and one of his goddess wives came to Earth as Adam and Eve to start the human race. Thousands of years later, Elohim, in human form once again, journeyed to Earth from the starbase Kola, this time to have sex with the Virgin Mary, in order to provide Jesus with a physical body.
Really?
After Jesus Christ grew to manhood, he took at least 3 wives, Mary, Martha, and Mary Magdalene. Through these wives, the Mormon Jesus, for whom Joseph Smith claimed direct descent, supposedly fathered a number of children before he was crucified. According to the Book of Mormon, after his resurrection, Jesus came to the Americas to preach to the Indians, who the Mormons believe are really Israelites. Thus, the Jesus of Mormonism established his church in the Americas as he had in Palestine.
Uh-oh. There was a revolt.
By the year 421 AD, the dark-skinned Indian Israelites, known as Lamanites, had destroyed all of the white Nephites in a number of great battles. The Nephites' records were supposedly written on golden plates and buried by Moroni, the last living Nephite in the hill Cumorah. 1,400 years later, a young treasure seeker named Joseph Smith, who was known for his tall tales, claimed to have uncovered these same gold plates near his home in upstate New York. He is now honored by Mormons as a prophet because he claimed to have had visions from the spirit world in which he was commanded to organize the Mormon church, because all Christian creeds were an abomination. It was Joseph Smith who originated most of these peculiar doctrines, which millions today believe to be true. By maintaining a rigid code of financial and moral requirements, and through performing secret temple rituals for themselves and the dead, the Latter-day Saints hope to prove their worthiness and thus become gods.
Which is just a star.
The Mormons teach that everyone must stand at the final judgment before Joseph Smith, the Mormon Jesus, and Elohim. Those Mormons who were sealed in the eternal marriage ceremony expect to become polygamous gods in the celestial kingdom, rule over other planets, and spawn new families throughout eternity. The Mormons thank God for Joseph Smith, who claimed that he had done more for us than any other man, including Jesus Christ.
Really?
The Mormons believe that he died as a martyr, shed his blood for us, so that we too may become gods.
So, you know what? You wonder where they get this crap from, and it's because ancient Christian doctrine, believe it or not, said that if you were good enough in the saints, you got to become a star. Right. You couldn't become one of the gods that were the planets. You could only become a star. Right? But you got to get your own star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. It's odd as hell, isn't it? But, you know, that they're way up in the northwest and trying to take on Indians and be missionaries for them and the blacks that eventually come from there. And where do you get this weird ass crap from? Well, from there, from ancient Gnostic scrolls, from him supposedly deciphering Egyptian, which he had no frickin' clue what he was doing whatsoever. And what else? Well, he has to explain ancient cultures. So he's going to say all the ancient cultures were fallen ones and everybody else was ones too, and everybody that's not a Christian, Islam and everybody are all the fallen ones and stuff. And so they say that the ones that are over in Islam, see how dark they still are, and that's because they're still pretty much away from God, even though they believe in Abraham. And it's like, dude, they're dark because they live in a desert area. You're just about fucking idiots. But people believed this stuff back then, and evolution had just came out as an idea. And so he has to explain, kind of, and you can see how somebody might come off with some explanation people believe for a while. Well, the Mormons themselves, I believe most of them should, but you have zealots in every damn religion, I guess, that think, oh, it's it, you know, but the Mormons actually themselves know now that, well, that's not true. It's not even the way it broke down really in reality, but their guy was still a prophet that came out. And then, okay, so really it's just a shadow Christianity type of thing going on, Judeo-Christianity, you know. So, weird thing there, though, people, is that hopefully you've seen some of my other videos. El is the god of the Canaanites. That's Saturn or Kronos by the Greeks and stuff, and that's the god of the whole area that's there. And you think that Yahweh was fighting against him, but actually El is the god that they do worship forever. It's the star of the god Remphan, whenever you look that up, that was supposed to have been so bad, that has the hex in it, and it's still on their flag today. They use blue and white. The Levites use blue and white. the Greeks used blue and white, and they've always had that attachment through them. And what they really did in the old Bible was attach it to Greek Gnosticism, and using new Greek philosophy that was coming about, put a twist on it that's kept mankind pretty stupid for over 2,000 years on the whole idea of everything. But we've debunked it 1,000 times. Sadly, as we drop the book and really just keep it as kind of a gathering type of thing, there's one group here in America that's really getting excited about it, because their 400 years is coming up, which already happened a long time ago in the Bible, regardless. And if they want to mimic something out of the Bible that recreates something terrible, then that's not going to be looked too good by people. And it's really going to kind of make them look bad from then on. It's going to ruin everything, kind of. It's really, yeah, it's going to ruin a lot of stuff, so somebody has to really think about that. And before you think about that, maybe you ought to think about whether or not the Bible's even true that the idea comes from. You're like, oh, well, white people messed it up. Well, no, you're not messing it up, right? That whenever white people are racist for blacks. Oh, hold on, are you the one that's saying whitey, whitey, whitey? And you don't call that racism? Whenever you have hatred towards one color of people, not even knowing what they act like, who they are. They might have a black wife. You have no idea. It's just whitey. That's racist. That's racist. That's saying that there's something, and it racist goes on with, if you were to just say, oh, Italians, they're stupid, or Chinese, they're this, that's acting racism. And if you go whitey, 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 that's racism. And if you say hate whitey, hate whitey, hate whitey, that's not too good, because those are the people that freed you in the first place. It's really kind of odd even that it's happening. It's almost a backbiting situation that it won't be tolerated, and racism's got to end. I thought we had all had it ended till I find this out. It's just crazy. Let's go on here. Look at this.
Although there are thousands of Mormon churches throughout the world, there are only a few dozen Mormon temples. These massive structures play a vital role in the Mormons' quest for godhood. Mormons must engage in a series of occultic rituals inside the temple in order to become a candidate for godhood. Only an elite selection of devout Mormons are allowed to enter. To do so, the potential Mormon god must adhere to a strict code of ethics, including abstinence from tobacco or caffeine-based products, paying a full tithe to the Mormon Church, and wearing of the magic Mormon underwear 24 hours a day.
He has to receive a satisfactory interview from his bishop and from his stake president. There he's asked, or she is asked, certain rather penetrating questions about their worthiness, their morality. If he's a full tithe payer, that is the only way that we can be with our Heavenly Father. Otherwise, we could not be in His presence.
The motivation for the Mormon male to commit to such requirements is the promise of endless celestial sex, with thousands of goddess wives, along with a personal planet to rule and reign over. However, Mormon...
Sounds like a real twist to Islam, doesn't it? Where if you die, you get 70 virgins, whatever the silly crap is. So you're not supposed to have sex during life. So after you're dead and rotting in the ground, you'll, in your mind, have sex with these creatures or something, So if you want to fornicate, you're supposed to do it within your own mind about what might happen. It's silly shit. It really is. And yet it was in the old Bible too, So let's equate something here real quick. Hopefully any black Israelites have hung in, So El is that God I was talking about. And so Israel is his thing. And the Elohim, which we know is plural now, is that council, and it's the Canaanite council of El. They've proven it. Straight up. Yeah. And El had a wife, Asherah, and a kid named Baal, whose symbol was a Z, and he was known as Zeus, or Zeus. Yeah, and all the Roman gods took all the gods from around there, and sure, he's the god of the Levant area, that their area of land of golden plenty that they moved down into and fortified out like the Sumerians did on the other side, which were the blue-eyed gods that were all of antiquity, and then Nana and all the things where she's some pale red-headed chick with green eyes. And anyhow, where is L in there? Well, L's in the temp L. L's in the chap L. L hangs around with the angel L. Maybe that angel's name is Gabriel, Nathaniel, Ariel, Michael. Huh? Maybe they have people that come and they're prophets and they try to help them out. Some they listen to, some they don't. Real important ones too, like Nathaniel or Daniel, which is Daniel. Yeah, L. Or Ezekiel. Or how about here's this one here? Yeah, no, check this one out. Elijah, which actually is Eliyahu, which means El is Yahweh. Or you can find Bealiah, which actually means Baal is Yahweh. Yeah. And then you end up with some Baal worshiping people. They used to throw their kids into the fire. Yeah, that looks like some kind of demon thing in a pit, and they throw their kids into the fire, and sacrifice to that. That's Baal worship, right? You can look up Baal worship and see what that is. And that it never changed. That they just took the name off the front of it. And you say, Yahweh's something different. Look up Yahweh and his Asherah. You'll find out he was married to exactly that same lady somehow. Dun, dun, dun. After they killed off all the Canaanites, they just switched the name on the front of it, kept his wife and everything. Hey. And so Yahweh and his Asherah, look it up. He's a bull god with flies going around him. He's got a son. That's Baal. Yeah, yeah. And there she is sitting on her chair. Look it up. It's amazing. And yet not amazing. It's just some bullshit. But Kronos and Saturn and it's all just deifies their gods. Roman gods. Rome itself was built on a mound called Capitol Hill. But you look it up. The old name for Capitol Hill is Saturnus Mons. It's the mound of Saturn that they went on to. That's their whole god of the land of plenty. They ran that whole shit there. And look at the old videos on ancient Egyptians now. They found a lot of the old, especially early and pre-dynastic ones, are red and yellow-haired. And even though their skin's dark due to the crap they put on them and natron and everything, they're actually a Caucasian race people. Yeah, and hell, I can show that to you. But maybe you ought to just look it up. Egyptian blonde, red-haired mummies, and you'll see. They even found Joseph. What everybody said, oh, that's Joseph. And his hair just looks blonde because of the natron stuff. Well, they run the natron test and can't get anybody's hair to change no matter how hard they do it or how long. And then they run a DNA test modern and they find out, no, he's Caucasian. So it just kind of ruins that Afrocentric idea. And in fact, the video itself says it does right through the middle of it. They actually have kind of put it all together now, and it seems like when they leave out of Egypt is when the black people come into Egypt at the end and the final dynasties. And somewhere around 700 BC. Somewhere around there. After, it seems like all of Egypt comes out to perhaps have part to do in the great wars that go along through there through the time of Aries, and don't come out of it well at the end of it. And as the whole land goes to crap, they actually just move north into a more of a land of plenty and ditch Egypt, which becomes polluted and really a wasteland. And it's still that today, and people are fighting over it today, and it's just a wasteland area. So, yeah. Amazing, though. Can you believe it? They think they're going to become a star. If they can just do something nice, like help take the natives and teach them about God. Well, check it out. A couple of 100 years later, people turn it around on them, and next thing you know, they're like, yeah, you taught us about God, hand us the book. Now, we made the book. We invented everything. We taught everybody how to bathe. And, yeah. And actually, we were the ones that invented Hebrew. It's crazy. But the craziest part about it is it's true. The difference between the two is that the Mormons were trying to raise people up And the black people just want to hate white people. It's kind of sad. You really got to get over it. White people got over the Dark Ages, where it happened to us for twice as long. And they weren't trying to keep us healthy as slaves for workers. They were just killing people. You ought to look up the Dark Ages. It's terrible. And you were kind of safe in Africa through the Dark Ages, apparently, just doing what was going on there. And I don't know if you look what still goes on down there today. I don't know. All right, man. Like if you like the info. Sub me if you can. And people, if you don't like the info, I'm sorry, but look into what I said, you know. And if you want to, oh, one more special. Look up Flavian signature, and it'll show you that, again, the Greeks and Romans had their hand in the New Testament too. I appreciate y'all. Take care.